Have you ever wondered how thousands of steel parts can be cut, flattened, formed, welded, transported, and finally assembled into one structure with remarkable precision? Every connection depends on decisions made long before the crane arrives. Join us as we follow that accuracy from the first moving coil to the final beam, and discover how modern machines turn raw steel into structures that actually fit together. A finished steel building can contain thousands of separate parts, yet every beam, panel, hole, and connection has to arrive close enough to its intended geometry for assembly to work. That accuracy is not created at the construction site. It begins here, while the steel still exists as coils, sheets, and heavy sections moving through the factory. Outside the factory, the result appears much simpler. Retail stores, commercial buildings, pharmacies, and other structures may use very different combinations of glass, brick, stone, and metal, but each depends on components manufactured to fit a specific design. That design begins on a computer. Engineers work with structural plans and three-dimensional models that define where members, panels, and connections must eventually meet. The geometry is established digitally first. Fabrication must reproduce it in physical steel without allowing each operation to introduce too much variation. Back on the production floor, coils and beams are stored, moved, and prepared for processing. A crane transfers heavy coil stock, workers position structural material, and pre-painted sheets enter specialized equipment. The metal is straightened before cutting, helping present a more controlled surface to the next operation. Plasma cutting then separates steel into the shapes required for fabrication. Once those pieces are prepared, welding joins webs, flanges, and other structural elements into larger components. Nearby, sheet metal passes through roll-forming equipment, where successive rollers gradually create the profiles needed for wall and roof systems. The finished parts now begin another stage of the process. Forklifts move fabricated components onto flatbed trucks, transferring the work of the factory to the construction site. There, crews use boom lifts and other equipment to position panels and structural pieces as the building takes shape. Standing seam roofs and finished exterior systems show the final result, but most of the precision that makes them possible was created much earlier. Design defined the geometry. Cutting established boundaries. Forming created profiles. Welding assembled larger parts. And handling preserved those dimensions long enough for installation. What arrives at the construction site may look like a collection of separate steel components, but each one carries the result of decisions made throughout the factory. Every stage prepares the material for the next. The next question is how those massive coils are turned into a controlled stream of material before precise cutting can even begin. The steel coil is placed onto the conveyor system, where its movement shifts from crane handling to a mechanical route through the plant. From this point, the coil can travel between areas without being repeatedly lifted and repositioned. A supporting pallet carries the coil while rollers move the load forward along the path. Guide elements keep the pallet centered and prevent the coil from drifting as it passes through each section of the system. At transfer points, the conveyor aligns the pallet before sending it into the next section. This keeps the coil moving in the correct direction and allows the transport route to continue through storage and production areas with fewer manual handling steps. Operators monitor the movement from the control room while the conveyor manages the transport below. Cameras and system displays help track the position of each coil as it advances. The steel itself is not being processed yet. The purpose of this stage is simply to control location, direction, and movement of the heavy load. Once the coil reaches the station, it can be transferred into the next machine, where the focus shifts from moving the entire coil to unwinding and controlling the steel strip itself. A steel coil may appear to be a finished industrial product, dense, heavy, and tightly wound, but inside a processing line, it is only the starting form. Once it is placed onto the system, the real task begins, transforming a compact mass of steel into a controlled, moving strip of material. The coil is mounted onto an uncoiler shaft, and the unwinding process starts. Each loop of steel is pulled outward under steady tension, passing through a series of guide rollers. These rollers do more than simply support the material. They actively stabilize its path, ensuring the strip remains centered and does not drift sideways as it travels forward. From the very beginning, the system must manage several variables at once: tension, pulling speed, and lateral alignment. If even one of these parameters deviates, the entire downstream process is affected. A strip that shifts by only a few millimeters can cause cutting blades to produce inconsistent widths, leading to defective output later in production. As the coil continues to unwind, it is no longer treated as a single rigid object. Instead, it becomes a continuous flowing strip moving through a sequence of fixed stations. Each station has a specific role: flattening, stabilizing, or preparing the material for cutting. All of them operate under a shared assumption: the steel must always arrive at the exact position required for the next operation. This is why the system is not a standalone cutting machine but a synchronized production line. Feeding, guiding, and stabilizing must all occur before the steel reaches the slitting section. Each stage removes a potential source of error, reducing uncertainty before the material is divided. In practice, cutting precision does not begin at the blade. It begins at the feeding stage. The blade can only act on the path that is delivered to it. Therefore, maintaining stability in the strip is not just a transport function, it is part of dimensional control itself. Once the strip reaches a stable condition, it enters the slitting zone. Here, rotating circular knives or rotary blades divide the wide sheet into multiple narrower strips. These cutting tools are highly precise, but their accuracy depends entirely on how well the material was aligned beforehand. Even the sharpest blade cannot correct a misaligned feed. After slitting, the newly formed strips continue moving along the line. The system maintains separation between them, preventing overlap or collision. What began as a single heavy coil has now been reorganized into multiple controlled streams of steel, each one ready for further processing such as stamping, forming, or fabrication. At this stage, the factory has already solved a critical challenge: converting a dense, rigid mass into a controlled flow of material. The steel is no longer simply moving. It is being directed, stabilized, and continuously corrected as it travels through the system. The next stage of the process will go beyond simple division. It will require even tighter control over width, length, and final geometry, ensuring that each strip meets the exact specifications required for downstream manufacturing operations. Once the coil is loaded onto the line, the strip is pulled forward through the leveling section. Instead of simply supporting the sheet, the rollers repeatedly bend it in alternating directions. Each pass reduces the shape the coil has retained from being wound and helps bring the material closer to a stable, flatter condition. That matters because correct width and length are not enough. A sheet can still carry curvature or unevenness that changes how it behaves during cutting, forming, or assembly. The leveling line addresses that problem before those later operations inherit it. As the strip enters the roller bank, successive rollers force controlled changes in curvature. The material bends one way, then the other, while the machine keeps it moving along a defined path. These repeated corrections are smaller than a forming operation intended to create a final profile. Their purpose is to reduce unwanted shape rather than add a new one. The line continues feeding the sheet while operators and control systems monitor the process. Once the strip has passed through the leveling section, it can move toward marking, cutting, and stacking with a more predictable geometry. The second line shows the same principle, integrated into a broader production flow. A heavy coil is positioned, the strip is fed through the machine, leveled, identified, cut to the required format, and stacked for the next operation. Each stage depends on the material leaving the previous one in a controlled condition. Leveling, therefore, sits between rough dimensional preparation and precision cutting. It does not define the final part, but it prepares the steel so the next machine can. Without that correction, downstream dimensional accuracy becomes harder to preserve consistently. With width, length, and flatness under control, the production line can finally begin defining the exact boundaries of individual blanks. The leveled strip is now stable enough for the next task, defining the exact boundary of each usable piece. From this point, the process stops correcting the material and starts separating it. The line must feed, measure, cut, and stack each blank without losing the geometry prepared upstream. On the Schuler line, the coil is first threaded into the machine and guided through the entry section. The leading end is trimmed so damaged or irregular material does not continue into production. The strip then passes through a precision straightener, where multiple rollers correct remaining curvature before the material reaches the cutting area. A loop section absorbs movement between stages and keeps the strip feeding smoothly. From there, the roll feed advances the sheet by a controlled distance for every cycle. That feed length determines where the shear will cut, so positioning and cutting work as one system rather than two separate operations. The swiveling shear then separates the moving strip into individual blanks. By changing the cutting angle, the line can produce rectangular or trapezoidal pieces without requiring a completely different material path. Once cut, the blanks are transferred automatically into organized stacks, keeping finished pieces separated and ready for downstream handling. The guillotine shear approaches the same basic problem, with much heavier, discrete plate. Workers position the plate across the support table and align it with the machine before the hydraulic system drives the blade through the material with controlled force. Unlike continuous blanking, the plate remains stationary during the cutting stroke. The blade crosses the full width in one controlled action, separating a large section from the parent plate. Support rollers help workers move and reposition the heavy material between cuts, while the control system sets the machine for the next operation. Both processes create an edge, but they serve different production flows. One converts a continuously fed strip into repeated blanks. The other cuts individual heavy plates in separate cycles. Once those boundaries are fixed, the steel is no longer simply prepared stock. It has become a defined part, ready for the next operation to change not its size but its shape. Once cutting has defined a piece of metal, manufacturing can take several different paths. The next examples are not consecutive stages of one production line. They show three different ways industry controls deformation when the required geometry, material condition, and scale of the part change. The sheet enters the roll-forming line as a flat strip and passes through a sequence of paired rollers. Each station bends the metal slightly farther than the one before it, gradually building the required profile without forcing the full shape in a single step. The strip remains in continuous motion while the rollers control both its path and its changing cross-section. By the time it leaves the final station, the material has been transformed from a flat sheet into a formed profile ready for cutting or further fabrication. Hot forming uses a very different sequence. A heated metal blank is carried from the furnace area toward the hydraulic press while it is still glowing. The workpiece is positioned beneath the forming tool, and the press descends to force the hot metal into a deeper curved shape. As the material deforms, workers use long tools to adjust its position and keep it centered beneath the die. The press cycles again, increasing the curvature, while heat, scale, and steam remain visible around the workpiece. Once the required shape is reached, the formed piece is lifted away and removed from the press area. Power hammer forging changes shape through repeated impacts rather than one sustained pressing action. A heated bar or workpiece is placed on the anvil beneath the hammer. The ram strikes the metal repeatedly while the operator repositions and rotates it between blows. Each impact compresses one area, and each adjustment exposes another section to the hammer. The sequence allows the operator to draw out, taper, bend, or refine the workpiece progressively instead of trying to create the final geometry at once. The three processes control deformation in different ways. Roll forming spreads the change across many roller stations. Hydraulic pressing concentrates force through a large forming tool, while the hot blank is held in position. Power hammer forging divides the deformation into repeated blows, with the workpiece continually moved between strikes. These processes belong to different manufacturing applications, but comparing them reveals the same engineering decision. Deformation has to match the geometry being produced. Thin continuous profiles can be shaped progressively through rollers. Large hot blanks can require concentrated pressing force, while smaller hot workpieces can be developed through repeated impacts. In every case, shape is created progressively and depends on controlling where the metal is when force is applied. A correctly cut blank can still become unusable if it shifts, bends unevenly, or receives deformation in the wrong area. Once individual parts have been formed, the next challenge is no longer changing their geometry. It is preserving that geometry through welding, inspection, handling, and final assembly. Inside the prefab factory, formed metal parts move directly into fabrication. Robotic welding joins frame members along programmed paths, while other stations bend sheet metal and cut panels to the dimensions required for assembly. CNC cutting turns larger sheets into repeatable panels. Barcodes and scanners link those parts to their production records. Vacuum lifting equipment moves broad panels without dragging them across the floor, reducing unnecessary handling while keeping the material under control. Inspection follows the same logic. Workers check completed units, verify surfaces and alignment, and use measuring tools to confirm that the structure remains level. Parts that have already been cut, formed, and welded must preserve their geometry through every handling step, because any distortion introduced here will appear later during installation. The process then shifts from factory assembly to field erection. Fabricated steel members arrive at the construction site and are lifted by crane into the growing frame. The crane supplies the lifting force, but alignment still depends on the geometry created earlier in the factory. A beam has to arrive at the correct length and shape before workers can connect it efficiently without forcing adjustments at the site. As more members are placed, isolated fabricated parts become columns, beams, bays, and eventually a complete structural frame. Exterior panels are installed after the main frame has taken shape, enclosing the structure around the steel skeleton. At this stage, the manufacturing chain becomes visible as one assembled system. Cutting accuracy, forming accuracy, welding, inspection, transport, and lifting all converge at the same connection points. At the construction site, the manufacturing chain has reached its purpose. Separate pieces have become one structure, but steel does not remain in that geometry forever. Years later, when metal products reach the end of their useful form, the manufacturing logic can reverse. At the scrapyard, geometry that once had to be protected is deliberately destroyed so the material can become manageable again. A grapple excavator lifts discarded appliances, vehicle parts, and mixed metal scrap, then places each load into the processing machine. Inside, the bulky material is forced through a size reduction stage. Large pieces lose the shapes they once carried, and the output drops onto a conveyor in a manageable form. The excavator continues feeding the machine while equipment moves material around the yard and keeps the process supplied. This is the reverse of everything seen earlier. Manufacturing spent each stage controlling width, length, flatness, edges, and final geometry. Here, that geometry is no longer useful. The goal is to break complex objects down so the metal can be handled and processed more efficiently afterward. Earlier, value came from controlling dimensions closely enough to create a useful part. Here, those dimensions have served their purpose. The geometry disappears, but the material remains ready to enter another industrial cycle in a different form.